Welcome to Elevate and Thrive, where your mindset evolves. You are not stuck because you are weak. You are not behind because you lack talent. You are where you are because of the decisions you've been repeating. Right now, in this exact moment, your life is balanced on a choice, not a dramatic one, not a movie-style breakthrough, a simple, quiet decision that most people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. But that one decision is powerful enough to redraw your entire future. Your life is not the result of luck, talent, or circumstances. It is the outcome of the decisions you have made repeatedly, often without realizing their power. Every situation you are in right now can be traced back to a choice you made or avoided, the habits you keep, the standards you accept, the effort you give, and the excuses you tolerate have all worked together to create your current reality. This truth can feel uncomfortable, but it is also the most empowering realization you can have. People like to believe their lives are shaped by external forces because it removes responsibility. It feels easier to blame timing, background, economy, or other people. But when you look closely, you'll see that two people can face the same situation and end up in completely different places. The difference is not luck, it is decision making. One chose discipline while the other chose comfort. One acted while the other waited. One took responsibility while the other looked for reasons. Talent does not guarantee success. History is full of gifted people who never fulfilled their potential because their daily decisions didn't support their abilities. At the same time, there are countless examples of people with average skills who built extraordinary lives because they consistently chose effort, learning, and persistence. Decisions compound. Skill only matters when it is backed by action. Luck is often misunderstood. What people call luck is usually preparation meeting opportunity. The opportunity shows up for many, but only those who have been making the right decisions are ready to take advantage of it. The rest watch it pass and call it bad luck. In reality, their past decisions left them unprepared. Your daily choices train your mind and shape your identity. When you decide to wake up early, you reinforce discipline. When you decide to delay, you reinforce avoidance. When you choose to work despite discomfort, you strengthen resilience. When you choose comfort repeatedly, you weaken your ability to endure challenge. Over time, these decisions stop feeling like choices and start feeling like who you are. That identity then guides future decisions, creating a powerful cycle. This is why change feels so hard. You are not just changing actions, you are challenging an identity built through repetition. But the same way your current identity was formed, a new one can be built, one decision at a time, one consistent choice repeated daily. You don't wake up one day with a different life. You wake up after months or years of different decisions. Every excuse you accept today becomes a rule you live by tomorrow. If you decide it's okay to skip effort when things feel hard, that decision will follow you into every area of life. If you decide that discomfort is a signal to grow instead of quit, that decision will also follow you everywhere. Decisions are portable. They don't stay in one area of life. They shape your mindset as a whole. The most dangerous decisions are the small ones because they feel insignificant. Choosing to scroll instead of focus. Choosing to delay instead of act. Choosing to stay silent instead of speak up. None of these feel life-altering in the moment, but repeated thousands of times, they quietly determine where you end up. Your life is built in these invisible moments. You don't need to be special to change your life. You need to be consistent. You need to decide that your future matters more than your current comfort. That decision alone separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. The moment you understand that your life is shaped by decisions, not luck, you regain control. You stop waiting to be saved. You stop hoping things will change on their own. Every result you admire in others started with a decision they made when no one was watching. A decision to try again. A decision to stay disciplined, a decision to stop lying to themselves. Those decisions didn't feel heroic, they felt ordinary, but repeated over time, they became powerful. Your life is not fixed, it is flexible. It responds immediately to new decisions. The moment you choose differently, your direction changes, and direction, not speed, is what determines where you end up. One uncomfortable decision has the power to completely change the direction of your life, not because it magically fixes everything, but because it breaks the pattern that has been holding you in place. Most people stay stuck not because they are incapable, but because they are trapped in familiar routines that feel safe. Comfort keeps you repeating the same choices, and repetition locks you into the same outcomes. The moment you choose something uncomfortable, you step outside that loop. Discomfort is where growth begins, but it is also where fear shows up the loudest. Your mind will fight that decision with excuses that sound logical. It will tell you to wait, to prepare more, to start later, to avoid embarrassment or failure. These thoughts are not protecting you, they are protecting the version of you that wants to stay the same. The uncomfortable decision challenges that version and opens the door or to a different future. Every major transformation starts with a moment of resistance. There is always a point where you feel unsure, where the old path feels easier and the new one feels risky. That tension is not a sign that you are making the wrong choice. It is a sign that you are making a powerful one. If the decision felt comfortable, it wouldn't change anything. An uncomfortable decision does not need to be dramatic. It can be small but meaningful. Choosing to wake up earlier when you want to sleep. Choosing to work when no one is forcing you. Choosing to speak honestly instead of staying silent. These decisions don't impress anyone in the moment, but they alter the trajectory of your life because they build momentum. Momentum changes everything. Once you act differently, you start seeing yourself differently. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is built through action. When you make a difficult decision and follow through, you send yourself a message that you can be trusted. That self-trust becomes fuel, makes the next uncomfortable decision easier, and the next one easier still. Most people think they need motivation before they act, but motivation follows action. Action proves to your brain that change is possible. Without that proof, your mind stays locked in doubt. One uncomfortable decision breaks that mental barrier. It shows you that discomfort is survivable and that you are stronger than the voice telling you to stay small. Staying comfortable has a cost. Even if it doesn't feel like it, it slowly drains your potential. It creates regret that grows quietly over time. The pain of discomfort is temporary. The pain of regret lasts much longer. One uncomfortable decision trades short-term pain for long-term growth. That trade is always worth it. The reason people avoid these decisions is not because they are incapable, but because they underestimate themselves. They imagine failure, judgment, or loss, and they treat those imagined outcomes as guarantees. In reality, the only guaranteed loss comes from never deciding at all. Indecision is a decision, and it always favors the life you already have. When you choose discomfort, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You accept that clarity comes from movement, not from thinking. The path becomes clearer after you take the first step, not before. That first step is always the hardest because it requires you to leave certainty behind. A single uncomfortable decision can introduce you to a version of yourself you've never met, a version that is disciplined, focused, and resilient. Once you see that version is possible, you cannot unsee it. Your standards change. What you tolerate changes. The direction of your life shifts. You don't need to transform your entire life in one moment. You need one decision that pulls you out of the pattern you're in. That decision creates a new direction, and direction, even at a slow pace, leads to a completely different destination. Motivation is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal growth because people treat it like a reliable engine when it is actually a temporary emotion. It rises and falls based on mood, energy, and circumstance. If your progress depends on feeling motivated, your progress will always be inconsistent. That is why so many people start strong and then fade away. They wait for the feeling to return instead of building something that doesn't depend on how they feel. A decision, on the other hand, creates direction. When you decide, you remove debate. You stop asking yourself whether you should act and start acting because you already chose. That shift is powerful. It conserves mental energy and turns effort into routine. Decisions turn actions into standards. And standards don't require motivation, they require commitment. Momentum begins the moment a decision is followed by action. It doesn't need intensity, it needs consistency. When you take action after deciding, even in a small way, your brain receives evidence that change is happening. That evidence builds confidence. Confidence reduces resistance. Reduced resistance makes action easier. That's how momentum forms, not in bursts, but in steady movement. Most people fail not because they lack motivation, because they never fully decide. They keep one foot in and one foot out. They try without committing. They plan without executing. That halfway mindset kills momentum before it starts. A decision closes the door on retreat. It tells your mind there is no alternative path to escape to when things get uncomfortable. Motivation reacts to results. When things are going well, motivation feels high. When progress is slow, motivation disappears. Decisions don't work that way. A decision holds even when results are invisible. It anchors behavior during the hardest phase, the phase where effort is high and feedback is low. This is where most people quit, not because the path is wrong, but because they mistake silence for failure. Momentum is fragile in the beginning, it needs protection. This is why discipline matters more than inspiration. Discipline keeps you moving when excitement fades. Each small action taken after a decision strengthens momentum. Each skipped action weakens it. Over time, momentum becomes self-sustaining. What once required effort starts to feel natural. A decision also reshapes identity. When you consistently act on a decision, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity shift is permanent. And once your identity changes, motivation becomes irrelevant because your actions align with who you believe you are. People often confuse motivation with readiness. They think feeling motivated means they are ready, and feeling unmotivated means they are not. In reality, readiness is built through action. You don't become ready and then start, you start, and readiness develops along the way. Decisions accelerate this process by forcing movement before confidence arrives. When you rely on motivation, you are controlled by circumstances. When you rely on decisions, you control your direction. That difference determines long-term success. Decisions create structure. Structure reduces chaos. Reduced chaos increases focus. Focus compounds into results. The most powerful moments in life are rarely emotional highs. They are quiet moments of commitment. Moments where you decide to keep going without applause. Moments where you choose progress over comfort. Those moments don't feel dramatic, but they create momentum that carries you further than motivation ever could. Once momentum is built, it becomes your ally. It pulls you forward on days you feel tired. It reminds you that stopping would require more effort than continuing. That is the power of a decision. It turns movement into habit and habit into progress. Comfort and delay are often disguised as harmless choices, but in reality, they are decisions that quietly shape your life in powerful ways. They don't feel dangerous in the moment, they feel reasonable. You tell yourself you deserve rest, that you'll start tomorrow, that now isn't the right time. These thoughts sound gentle, even responsible, but repeated over time, they build a life that never moves forward. Comfort keeps you in familiar patterns. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than risking change. But safety without growth slowly turns into stagnation. When you choose comfort repeatedly, you train your mind to avoid challenge, you lower your tolerance for discomfort, and over time, even small efforts begin to feel overwhelming. This is how potential gets buried without any dramatic failure. Delay works the same way. Postponing action feels like control, but it's actually avoidance. You delay not because you can't act, but because acting forces you to confront uncertainty. Delay gives you temporary relief from that discomfort, but relief is not progress. It's a pause that becomes a habit, and habits don't disappear on their own. The danger of comfort and delay is that they don't announce their consequences. Nothing obvious breaks when you choose the easy path today. No alarms go off. Life simply stays the same, but staying the same is not neutral. While you stand still, time moves forward, opportunities pass, skills fade, confidence weakens. The cost is invisible until it's too late to ignore. Most people believe they are waiting for the right moment. But the right moment is created by action, not patience. Waiting feels productive because it feels intentional, but if nothing changes during that waiting, it is not preparation. It is procrastination wearing a respectable mask. Comfort and delay keep you preparing forever without ever beginning. These decisions also shape your self-image. Every time you avoid action, you send yourself a message that you cannot be trusted to follow through. Over time, that message becomes belief. That belief affects every area of life. You stop setting bold goals because you don't believe you'll act on them. You shrink your ambitions to match your habits. The opposite is also true. When you choose discomfort over comfort and action over delay, you build self-respect. Self-respect is not created by success, but by effort. It grows when you do what you said you would do, especially when it's hard. That respect becomes a foundation for confidence and discipline. Comfort also dulls urgency. When life feels manageable, it's easy to forget that time is limited. You act as if there will always be another chance, another year, another opportunity, but time does not slow down for indecision. The longer you delay, the harder change becomes, not because you're weaker, but because habits have had more time to solidify. Breaking free from comfort doesn't require extreme action. It requires honest awareness. You must notice where you are choosing ease instead of growth, where you are delaying instead of deciding, where you are protecting comfort instead of building your future. Change begins the moment you stop justifying these choices. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the signal that you are stepping into growth. Every meaningful improvement in life requires a period of unease. Avoiding that discomfort does not eliminate it. It postpones it and multiplies it. The discomfort you avoid today returns later as regret. Comfort and delay will keep you exactly where you are, not because they are strong, but because they are subtle. The moment you recognize them as decisions, not accidents, you regain control. And control is the first step toward building a different life. When you refuse to choose, you are not staying neutral, you are handing control over to time, and time does not hesitate, negotiate, or care about your intentions. It moves forward relentlessly, turning inaction into a decision with consequences. Many people believe that not choosing keeps options open, but in reality, it closes doors quietly while you stand still. Life continues shaping itself whether you participate or not. Time has a direction, it always moves forward. When you don't decide how you will use it, it decides for you. Days fill themselves with distractions. Weeks disappear into routines. Years pass without noticeable change. And one day you realize that the life you wanted required decisions you never made. Not because you failed, but because you waited. Indecision feels safe because it delays responsibility. As long as you haven't chosen, you don't have to face the outcome. You don't risk failure. You don't risk judgment, but you also don't risk growth. You trade short-term comfort for long-term cost. Time accepts that trade without resistance and charges interest in the form of regret. Most people don't lose their dreams suddenly. They lose them slowly, through hesitation, through endless preparation, through telling themselves they'll decide later. Time takes those moments and stacks them. What felt like harmless delay becomes a permanent direction. And by the time you notice, momentum has been building in the wrong direction. Time is always working on habits. If you don't choose discipline, time strengthens distraction. If you don't choose action, time deepens avoidance. If you don't choose growth, time reinforces comfort. These patterns harden with repetition. The longer you wait, the harder they are to break. Not because change is impossible, but because inertia grows stronger. The idea that you'll decide when you feel ready is an illusion. Readiness is not a signal you receive. It's a condition you create by acting. Time does not deliver clarity to those who wait. It rewards those who move. While you are waiting for certainty, time is shaping your future based on your current behavior. There is a quiet cruelty in time choosing for you. It doesn't ruin your life dramatically. It doesn't take everything away at once. It simply allows things to stay the same long enough for opportunities to expire. Skills dull, confidence erodes, energy fades. You don't notice the loss immediately because it happens gradually. When you finally realize what's happened, the pain is sharper because you know it was avoidable. You see that the cost was not effort but delay, not difficulty but hesitation. Time didn't betray you. It did exactly what it always does. It responded to your lack of decision. Choosing late is harder than choosing early. The longer you wait, the more you have to undo. More habits to break, more regret to process, more ground to recover. This is why people feel stuck later in life. Not because change is impossible, but because time has already chosen a direction through years of inaction. Time does not need your permission to shape your life. It will turn whatever you repeatedly do into who you become. If you choose nothing, it will choose consistency in your current state. If you choose distraction, it will deepen distraction. If you choose growth, it will amplify growth, but it will always choose something. The most powerful decision you can make is to stop letting time decide blindly, to interrupt the pattern, to take responsibility for direction, even if you're unsure about the outcome. Direction matters more than certainty. Movement matters more than confidence. A flawed decision acted upon beats a perfect decision delayed forever. When you decide, you reclaim time, you give it a purpose, you turn it from an enemy into an ally. But when you refuse to decide, time becomes ruthless. It will carry you somewhere whether you're ready or not. The life you are living now is not random. It is the result of past decisions and past indecision. And the life you will be living a year from now is already being shaped. The only question is whether you will choose the direction or let time do it for you. Your future self is not a distant idea or an imaginary version of you that exists somewhere far away. It is a real outcome built by what you do right now. Every action you take, every habit you repeat, and every choice you avoid is shaping the person you will become, whether you think about it or not. That future version of you is being created moment by moment. Most people treat the future as something abstract, something that will eventually arrive on its own. They assume they'll figure things out later, that somehow things will change when the time is right. But the future does not appear suddenly. It grows out of the present. It takes the patterns you repeat today and carries them forward. The future you experience is simply today repeated many times. Your future self is watching every compromise you make. Every time you say you'll start tomorrow, every time you choose comfort over discipline. These moments feel small, but they add up. They form habits, and habits don't disappear when time passes. They become your lifestyle. The person you become is not chosen in one dramatic moment. It is chosen through these quiet decisions. The same is true in the opposite direction. Every time you choose to act despite resistance, you give your future self a gift. You make tomorrow easier. You reduce future stress. You build confidence that carries forward. Discipline today removes regret later. Effort now creates freedom later. The future always collects the bill from the present. People often imagine their future self as someone separate, someone stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. They believe that version will magically have the traits they lack now. But that version of you does not appear out of nowhere. It is trained by your current behavior. If you don't practice discipline now, your future self won't have it. If you don't practice courage now, it won't suddenly show up later. Your future self does not want perfection. It wants consistency. It wants you to stop sabotaging the path forward. It wants you to stop waiting for motivation and start building habits that work even when motivation is gone. The future rewards systems, not emotions. Every delay pushes responsibility onto the future version of you. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later, but later is just another day where you'll feel the same resistance. Procrastination doesn't disappear with time. It grows. What feels hard now feels heavier later because time adds weight to unfinished decisions. There is a quiet honesty in imagining your future self standing in front of you, not angry, not disappointed, just aware. Aware of the choices you made, aware of the chances you ignored, aware of the potential you protected instead of used. That awareness is not meant to shame you. It is meant to wake you up. Your future self will either thank you or resent you, not for one big action, but for the patterns you kept. Gratitude is built through small, repeated effort. Regret is built the same way. Both are earned daily. When you act today, you collapse the distance between who you are and who you want to be. You stop treating the future as a fantasy and start treating it as a responsibility. Responsibility is empowering because it gives you control. It reminds you that you are not waiting for life to happen. You are actively creating it. And time does not create growth on its own. It amplifies whatever you repeat. If you repeat discipline, time multiplies progress. If you repeat avoidance, time multiplies regret. The future is not neutral. It reflects your present. Your future self is not asking you to be fearless. It is asking you to be honest. Honest about where you are, honest about what you avoid, honest enough to take the next right step. That step does not need to be perfect. It needs to be real. The version of you that exists 1 year from now is already forming. Every day you either help that version or hurt it. There is no pause button. There is no rewind. There is only choice repeated daily, shaping the person you will eventually become. Elevate your thinking. Thrive in your life.